Right, hello guys, and welcome back to another entry of the Forever Build series, the place where we cover absolutely perfect builds, factoring in set bonuses, stat distributions, optimal subclass makeup, weapon choices, and everything in between, making them the best versions of what they could possibly be, and thus being this way forever because the game isn't receiving any more major sandbox updates. You could be watching this build within the first week of upload, or even 3 to 4 years down the line, and it will still be just as dominant as it was the moment it was put together. And today we are continuing with what I've landed on as the best solar hunter setup for all PvE content. From patrols and everyday repeatables to even the hardest raids and dungeons, this build covers everything and excels throughout. Plus, it's probably the most fun you'll have on Solar Hunter literally ever. So if you enjoyed today's content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, but without further ado, let's get into it. So the biggest thing with Solar Hunter is that there are lots of aspects that work with it now because it has 4 fully fledged aspects like all of the other classes. It's very difficult to choose which one to run. There are a couple that are non-negotiable, such as on your mark or knock 'em down, but your other 2 sort of fun options are like crack shot and gunpowder gamble, and you can only choose 2 of them. So which do we choose for this build? Which one is the most optimal? This is kind of the first problem that we need to tackle. Gunpowder gamble, on the one hand, is very good for clearing big waves, there's no doubt about that. With on your mark, you get an easy 3 seconds of restoration times 1 for simply getting precision hits, and then any kill after that is also going to re-trigger restoration as long as you're at those 10 stacks. But then we land on Crackshot, which at least at time of recording is the hot new thing, but I do believe it has the most staying power out of all of them, and it is just incredibly fun. It has movement, it has utility, and it just has aura. It's so much fun to use, it does a decent bit of damage, which you can scale with the class stat if you want to, and the utility of it being able to act as a reload or even an air move dodge as well is very nice. In my opinion, the one non-negotiable aspect for this build in particular is going to be knock 'em down. This one states that your solar supers are enhanced, Deadshot Golden Gun has damage resistance, Marksman Golden Gun has increased duration, and Blade Barrage launches more projectiles, while Radiant Final Blows with your equipped throwing knife fully refund your melee energy. So the second part is quite important because that is the classic Solar Hunter loop of throwing your knife out and getting it back instantly, and it also improves the damage of our supers, and those who will know, Blade Barrage is literally the best one-off super in the game, no doubt about it, with Shards of Galanor. So the fact that we are going to be able to improve the damage of it with this aspect is just a no-brainer. And just to show you what that looks like, with no knock 'em down, 200 super, and with Shards of Galanor, my Blade Barrage is going to hit for around 28,000, around 29,000 there, as you can see. And then with knock 'em down and 200 super and Shards of Galanor, we are going to do around 37,000 instead. So it is a fairly substantial increase. You do want to have this on because you are missing out on around 7,000 total damage. So with the 2 aspects that we have, that being knock 'em down and crack shot, we are losing an element of survivability with not having on your mark and not having access to the restoration that it provides. However, with things like our artifact and the rest of our fragment selection, we are going to be able to remedy that with the rest of the setup, and it won't matter nearly as much. So now for the exotic of the build, before we move on to getting any deeper into our subclass and whatnot, I have actually gone with the 6th Coyote for this build, not something like Speedloader Slacks, which is what you typically see your Solar Hunters use. And the reason for that is 2 crack shots is better than 1, which is always very good to have. And I have tried testing with Speedloader Slacks, and while the reload was nice, I personally prefer 6th Coyote because of the consistency. I wasn't noticing the chunk gains from Speedloaders terribly often either, unless directly firing at a boss, which didn't happen a lot. Plus, you also get the Intrinsic Reaper mod from 6th Coyote, which is very nice. It frees up a slot on your class item, which we will be using coming later in the mod section of the build. So if you haven't tried 6th Coyote yet, I would recommend it. I do think it is basically the same thing as Speedloaders. We actually will be using Speedloaders in the build as part of a damage setup, which I've actually already made a video on, but I will reference this video later as well. Speedloaders is part of the build, just not in the neutral part. Okay, so now we are going to be taking a look at the subclass and what we are using to make this the best version of what it could possibly be. The super is, of course, going to be Blade Barrage because, like I said, it is just the best one-off super in the game right now. Dodge-wise, these days, I am basically always going to be running Acrobat's Dodge on my Solar Hunter. Don't get me wrong, Marksman Dodge is really nice. It collects nearby ammo near you and it reloads all of your weapons, and I believe it has the shortest cooldown out of all of them, which I think is true. But Acrobat's Dodge, it just has such a nice utility of being able to give you Radiant. Yes, Radiant doesn't let you pierce barriers anymore, but just having that on-demand 20% damage buff is quite good, in my opinion, at least. So I will always always default to acrobat dodge, and by the way, this does work with crack shot. So if I show you in game here, if I just activate it, I will get 10 seconds of radiant whenever I activate my crack shot, which is got, you know, the acrobat dodge layered underneath it. For the melee, we have knife trick, because this is just the one that deals the most damage out of all of the melees on Solar Hunter, and it feels the best to use. Healing grenade here for those situations where you might just need a little bit of extra heals if you are just in a tight spot. Then for the aspects, of course, knock them down. This one is non-negotiable, improves the damage of blade barrage and gives us that knife trick interaction when radiant. Then of course, crack shot. Now a couple things about crack shot to know is that if you land all 3 shots on a target, or if you just land all 3 shots all together, it will give you cure, which is a bit of extra healing. And also each shot scorches the target, which is going to be good for synergy with some of our upcoming fragments. Speaking of, our first fragment is going to be Ember of Benevolence. This one states that applying restoration, cure, or radiant to allies grants increased grenade, melee, and class ability regeneration for a short duration. Now, this fragment is going to do nothing when you are running solo, and out of all of the gameplay, I am solo, so you're not really going to see the effects of it, but when you are in a team scenario, the regen of your abilities, like your crack shot, your melees, etc., is noticeably higher, and it is a lot of fun to play with. So even though in solo play, Benevolence doesn't do anything, when you do play with friends, or if you're playing in a match-made activity, you will notice the hell out of Benevolence, and it just makes the build that much more fun. For the second, we are taking Ember of Singeing. This one will make it so your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets, and remember how I said that crack shot applies scorch intrinsically? Well, this is going to work with this fragment, where as soon as you hit something with it, you are going to get a ton of extra regen for your crack shot. And the actual percentage value is 400% for Ember of Singeing, or 5 times base. Ember of Mercy and Ember of Searing are next, and these two are essentially our survivability fragments. Ember of Mercy states that when you revive an ally, you and other nearby allies gain restoration. Picking up a fire sprite grants restoration. Now that second part is what we're really here for. And then paired with Ember of Searing, defeating scorched targets grants melee energy and creates a fire sprite. So with Crackshot being one of the main ways that we apply Scorch with this build, if I use it on a bunch of enemies that don't die from it, so they have to not die from it in order to spawn a fire sprite, but defeating them will create this fire sprite, and then collecting it will give restoration for a short amount of time, which is going to be basically the main way that we get restoration outside of our healing grenade here. And you will be making lots of fire sprites because you're going to have a lot of crack shots. You have 2 of them from the exotic, and if you're in a team, Benevolence is going to help even more. So we're going to get a lot of them, and we're going to get a consistent amount of restoration applied to us throughout. But like I said, we still have plenty to discuss with regards to damage resistance that we will get to shortly. Now for a little section about the weapons, the 2 that I am recommending you use in this build that you are seeing throughout the gameplay is double special. The first being a strand trace rifle, or just a strand weapon in general. I really like using a trace here because it just feels the best in terms of what it allows me to do. And then a solar rocket pulse, of course the only solar rocket pulse being the Valantive D from Sparrow Racing League. Now the roll on my Unsworn, which is my strand trace of choice, which you can get as a tier 5 by farming Master Sundered Doctrine or Normal Sundered Doctrine if it is the featured dungeon for the week, is Shoot to Loot and Detonator Beam. The utility of Shoot to Loot is unparalleled in my opinion, and Detonator Beam is very nice for shooting big targets and staggering them. It deals a huge amount of stagger force even to bosses, so it's very good for just crowd controlling. Plus with the buffs that Trace Rifles got in the Monument of Triumph update, they just feel very good to use as primaries now, which is very nice. Not to mention you also get pseudo explosive payload and exhaust with the subjugation origin trait. This is one of the best origin traits in the game, and it works very well with Detonator Beam also. My god roll for the Valantive Solar Rocket Pulse is going to be anything with quick launch, appended mag, air trigger, and then a damage perk of your choice. My one has Paracausal Affinity, which is a 20% damage buff when I get a kill with a matching element to the weapon, which is solar in this case, so that is going to work with crack shot, knives, whatever, the weapon itself. This isn't the best damage perk you could get on this weapon. I could go for Desperate Measures here. It's only because I'm not getting melee and grenade kills too often that I don't choose this. I think Paracausal is just fine, but just have air trigger in the left and then any damage perk in the right, and you should be fine. And by the way, the reason you want air trigger is because it gives, I believe, plus 30 ammo gen stat, so it's very good for making sure you can get consistent ammo with the weapon. So speaking of consistent ammo gen and stats, let's talk about our stats, and it is going to be, for this build, a pretty weapons heavy distribution. I've gone for 200 weapons as my main investment, and then the rest is just good amounts into the cooldowns, 100 super, 80 class, 70 grenade, and 50 melee, which I make up with a font on my gloves as well, but we'll discuss that later. The reason you want 200 weapons is because when running double special, having 200 weapons is just a good thing to do, because every brick that you create is guaranteed to be double sized for special bricks and around 1/3 larger for heavy bricks. Now we don't care about that as much, but it just means that every single brick we create is going to be the maximum size, and especially if you run a solar scavenger on your boots, this will make even more ammo when you collect it for your rocket pulse in this case. Or if you're using Parasite, for example, as our heavy in like a raid or a dungeon boss encounter, it'll give us even more ammo for that as well. Before we get into the pieces that allowed me to have this distribution, I first want to discuss what the armor set we are using is, and that is the full Exodus down armor from Nessus, because the 4-piece is one of the best damage resist options in the game. Now, one of the things about Solar Hunter that it has always been relatively weak with regards to is damage resist. Solar classes, yes, they have great healing, they have restoration, they have cure, they have Well of Radiance, but they have 0 damage resistance verbs whatsoever. They have no frost armor, no woven mail, no void overshield. So we need to look at other ways of getting damage resist so the build has a higher ceiling and can work well in the hardest content in the game. So that's where the Nessus armor comes in, because it has the 4-piece repurpose charge, which states whenever you gain, lose, or spend an armor charge, heal and gain damage reduction for a short time. This effect scales with the amount of armor charge gained, lost, or spent. Now, I have made a video breaking down every single one of these new set bonuses and exactly how this set works, because it actually is quite complicated. There's a lot going on under the hood, but the simple version is basically this. If you have enough armor charge to the point where you can deal a special finisher, which I will be able to do here versus this legionary, hitting this special finisher will give me 4 stacks of repurpose charge on the left, as you can see. This lasts for 15 seconds, and in order to continue having this refreshed, all you need to do is collect orbs or hit more finishers. So I'll just make an orb here, and then I'll hit probably one more finisher on this guy, and it should go all the way back up to like 30 seconds or something like that. Yeah, there we go, 23 seconds, 30 is the max. It's very easy to maintain that. All you need to do is continue the actions of either finishers or collecting orbs. And by the way, losing armor charge counts for this as well, but it has a very long duration, and when you're at this level, this is a 29.5% damage resist. With it being able to last 30 seconds, that is very, very good. There's no flashy effects on this armor, such as like ability cooldowns or anything like that. It is strictly just damage resist and nothing else, but it is incredibly suitable for a build such as Solar Hunter. The 2-piece is also quite nice. It says that when your shields become broken, collect all nearby orbs of power and ammo bricks. It's just like a pseudo powerful attraction, which you will notice from time to time, but the 4-piece is the main thing. And all you need to really remember is have enough armor charges to hit a special finisher. Hit the special finisher, and then you will have 29.5% damage resist, basically infinitely, as long as you are making orbs and continuing special finishers. So in terms of the pieces that allowed me to get this distribution, my helmet is Gunner with a tertiary stat in melee with a tuning in melee. My gauntlets are Powerhouse with a tertiary stat in class and a tuning in class. My 6th Coyote is Powerhouse with a tertiary stat in class and a tuning in melee. My boots are Powerhouse with a tertiary stat in grenade and a tuning in weapons. And finally, my class item is Gunner with a tertiary stat in super and a tuning in weapons. And by the way, the best way to farm Nessus armor is by doing the Conflux Lost Sector on repeat on Master. And you can do this with friends as well. You don't have to do it solo, because you still get a guaranteed armor drop even if you're doing it in a team. The only thing you forfeit is the exotic engrams. So just make sure if you are wanting to farm this armor, do it with a team and do it at the Nessus Lost Sector. And because we're in this section talking about armor, I do just want to highlight what I said earlier in the video, where we are actually using speed loader slacks in this build, but it's only for like the damage component of when I get into like a raid or a dungeon boss fight. And I have already made a video on the Hunter DPS options that includes this build, but it is the speed loader slacks with Parasite and Found Verdict Astral Horizon rotation, which is basically this. I will go Parasite into this, which will speed loader reload, then shotgun, shotgun, Parasite, shotgun, shotgun, Parasite, speed loader here. The amount of damage instances that I deal here is enough to warrant the use of speed loaders. So yes, I am using it as part of how I would use Solar Hunter generally, but I do cover this extensively in my damage video. So if you want to go check that out, definitely go do that. Link in the description and in the top right card. Moving on to the artifact now, this is where we get into the rest of the damage resist that this build is able to access. And it's all centered around these 2 mods here, 2 tier 3 mods, 2 shreds, which says dealing sustained damage to severed targets unravels them. Defeating a severed target creates a hotspot of strand energy, granting woven mail to nearby allies for a short duration. So how do we actually sever things in the first place? Well, that is going to be from Horde Shuttle. Damaging unraveled targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a threadling. Threadlings sever targets that they damage. And now, how do we get the unravel? Well, that is going to be from unraveling orbs. Picking up an orb of power or a tangle grants strand weapons unraveling rounds, which is why I advocated for the use of a strand weapon in the top slot, because that's basically what allows these 3 perks to work together. So we have unravel from this, which is going to make it so it spawns a threadling, which is going to sever the target, and with that target being severed, when we defeat them, it is going to make a woven mail hotspot. So they work incredibly well together. Okay, so here I'm just going to show you how this interaction works. I've got myself my unraveling rounds, and then when I damage this enemy, it's going to spawn a threadling, which is then going to sever it. And then when I defeat the enemy, I've got the woven mail hotspot, and it gives woven mail pulses 3 times for 10 seconds. It refreshes the duration every time you get it. So it's very, very good. As you can see, this guy is severed here, so I can defeat him. He will make an orb. If I do Reaper here, defeat this guy, I can grab that for more unravel. This guy is severed. If I defeat him, he will also create a woven mail hotspot, as you can see. And I believe there is no cooldown on this. I think you can literally create hotspots as long as you like. Maybe there's a short cooldown, but I vividly remember multiple times where I had like 3 of these hotspots just chilling on the battlefield, making sure I never ran out of woven mail. So this interaction is very, very good. It is why I must encourage you to use a strand weapon in your top slot, and Unsworn, in my opinion, is one of the best you could use. As for the rest of the artifact perks, I'm taking Kindling Trigger. This is a tier 2 mod. It states Radiant causes solar weapons to apply Scorch to unscorched combatants. So this is going to apply to our Rocket Pulse whenever we have Radiant, which we will basically all the time. I've also gone for Dragon's Bite. Breaking a combatant shield with a strand or stasis weapon has a chance to suspend or freeze that combatant. And there might be 1 or 2 examples in the gameplay where you see a suspended enemy. That's because of Dragon's Bite, particularly the barrier champions, because breaking that barrier does count for this perk. Then moving into the tier 1 mods, we have Wished into Being. While your super is nearly fully charged, ability Final Blows spawn orbs of power, which is just going to help with getting our super back faster. Then finally, Torch. While Radiant, deal increased weapon damage to combatants affected by strand and stasis debuffs. This is only around 5%, but it's better than nothing, so we might as well take it. Finishing up with the armor mods, for the helmet, I am taking 1 special ammo finder so that I get more ammo, and then I have double siphons, 1 strand, and 1 solar so that I make orbs on double kills with both of my weapons. For the gloves, I have 1 melee font to take my stats from 50 to 70 whenever I have armor charge, 1 copy of heavy-handed so that I make orbs on melee kills, and then a solar loader. For the chest piece, I only have 1 resist mod, that being concussive dampener, and then a charged up so that I can hold 4 armor charges, and then a single solar ammo generation so that I get plus 20 ammo gen stat to my rocket pulse. For the boots, I have stacks on stacks, absolution and solar scavenger for more ammo and more orbs and more armor charge on orb pickup. And then finally, for the class item, I have time dilation, powerful attraction, and special finisher so that I am able to consume the armor charges to feed into the 4-piece Nessus armor. As far as the optimal gameplay loop for this build is concerned, make sure to use your crack shot when it is available because it is the most fun part and it also deals a good amount of damage. Make sure to dip into the woven mail hotspots you create from defeating the severed targets from your threadlings and unraveling rounds, and hit at least 1 special finisher to build and maintain the Nessus 4-piece set, because as a reminder, it is a 29.5% damage resist after you hit that special finisher. And stack that on top of severed targets, woven mail, you've got a really potent damage resist setup on a class that historically doesn't really have that. We're kind of bending the rules a little bit of what we're allowed to have on the mono subclasses. It is kind of like a mini prismatic in a way, and it just works incredibly well together. The fashion is on screen if you'd like to pause and copy, and also the dim link is going to be down in the description box below for you to copy the build hassle-free. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed the build, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.